A very good morning to you. Thank you very much for watching KBC Channel 1. You are in time for BizCheck. My name is Betty Kiptum. Over the next 1 hour, we shall be discussing matters agriculture value addition. What does it take to ensure that we are adding value to our produce, or rather agriculture produce, and making sure that we are accessing those markets abroad that are very lucrative? And we have the people who are doing it right now. And in studio with me is Barry Aluvanze. He is the CEO of Aluvana Avocado. Sitting right next to me. You shall see him in a second. In the middle is Kyle Shooter. He is, did I say that right? He is the CEO of Kuzana, as well as Dixon Ayuka, who is the CEO of Belfeeds. Kyle, did I say your name right?
Yeah, we say Shutter, but...
Shutter, I will say Shutter. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining me, gentlemen.
Pleasure.
Let's start with where value addition is currently in the country. Kyle, I will throw that question to you.
Where value addition is?
Right.
Well, there's so much opportunity for the value addition. Everything from export to local production as well. There's a stat which always blows people's minds, which is that Kenya has 1/6 the yield of the US. So if you get 10 bags of maize in Kenya, you get 60 bags of maize from the same piece of land in the US. And so that's the first thing. That's the first opportunity just to grow right there. And that's one of the things we're excited about as investors in Kenya. But from there, that's just the beginning, because you can turn that maize into flour, you can turn it into corn chips, you can export those corn chips, you can put some nice branding on them, have them sponsored by some musician, right? And there's just so much opportunity. So instead of just 6x growth, there's 1,000x growth potential in Kenya for agriculture value addition. At the same time, you're seeing less investment than I think is justified for that huge opportunity.
Right. Those are quite some interesting numbers. I'd like to hear from you, Barry. Tell us, first of all, what Aluvana Avocado does and what you have experienced in terms of accessing those export markets.
Well, at Aluvana, we bridge the gap between smallholder farmers and international markets. We source avocado directly from farmers, process and export to our distributors in both France and the Netherlands mostly. We're also looking at other projects further along the spectrum of value addition, avocado oil, essential oils with our herbs. I think your second question is the experience with the value addition?
Yes.
Yes, so for us, most of our business is concentrated on the lower end of the spectrum of value addition, which is packaging and presenting the avocado in the right way to access those lucrative markets. And I think that's somewhere people confuse. It still is value addition, though on the lower end of the spectrum. And we're building towards starting with avocado oil and other value-added products such as essential oils in the near future. Yeah.
I heard that value addition can be the difference between washed carrots from the farm and those that have not been washed, you know, when they're getting to the market. So definitely that's very important. I'll come to you, Dixon. Tell us what you do at Belfeeds, please.
Thank you so much for having us this morning. So at Belfeeds Farm Care, what you do is we process high nutritional pig feeds that we supply, of course, to farmers. And then at the end of the growing season for the farmers, we source the pigs from them, process them, and sell pork to various people in the market.
Right. And what's your experience in terms of value addition and export markets as well?
So currently for us, we majorly focused on the local market at the moment. But of course, there's big opportunity for growth in the sector, because when we think about, countries, for example, in the Middle East, it's funny that, for example, Dubai and Qatar is actually they're among the leading countries that import pork. Even when you think about that, they're an Islamic country that don't need pork. And so as Belfeeds Farm Care, even as we grow, those are the opportunities that we are looking into, and how can we actually be able to tap into that. Yeah.
Accessing the export markets is not an easy thing, because there are standards, very stringent standards that have to be met there. We know that there's some produce from Kenya that has been stopped from entering those markets in the past. I would like to hear from you your experience in terms of meeting those standards. I'll start with you, Barry.
Yeah, you're very correct. More than anything, more than the certifications, is the demand for that quality in those foreign markets. So you do have the usual checklist for us in avocado. You need your export license from the Kenyan government. you will need your global gap to access the EU market. Now, buyers are also asking for a social certification called SMETA. There are others like organic that people do have. I think also for us in our industry, with the happenings of last year, the Red Sea was closed. It meant longer transit times through the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa. And that caused a real shock in the industry, and even the need to focus even more on these standards and the quality, controlling your supply chain, controlling your logistics. It is challenging, but it is possible. Yeah.
The same question to you.
So at least at the moment, we haven't really started exporting, but we're already thinking about it. And when I think about the export markets, of course, compliance is one of those big parts that come into it. And my question has really been like, what is being done at the moment, and what actually can be done to assist companies like ourselves and businesses in the agri space to be compliant when it comes to the standards that they need to meet to be able to export. And that is for me the big question that I'm having at the moment. And so looking forward to getting probably some form of assistance when it comes to compliance, like what is it that we can do internally so that we can just get ready when that time comes. Yeah.
Right. Kyle, I would like to hear from you your thoughts on standards, please.
Sure, yeah. I mean, that standards itself is one kind of value addition.
Right.
Then the buyer is confident about it meeting certain requirements. Getting that, I think for avocado and pig feed, it's a very different kind of situation. The yield for avocados is quite good. There's still room for improvement. On the other hand, for pigs, the yield is relatively low. So something Dixon really focuses on is really good quality feed. First of all, getting good protein in there, all the other nutrients, right? And then being able to buy those pigs and give good genetics for those pigs so they can grow bigger. And so I don't think the pig industry is quite ready yet for export in Kenya, would be my guess. Whereas avocados, absolutely, it's a gold mine opportunity, right? The other thing about value addition is just moving things from A to B is value addition without even washing it. I can't eat a banana in Kisii while I'm in Nairobi. Once it's here, it's much more valuable to me, right? So I'm very much willing to pay extra money for that kind of a thing. Another thing I would say for avocado, dealing with the Red Sea situation, dealing with the logistics, that I think is the hardest thing in export, in any business, is the execution of it. Things happen, Red Sea closes, what do you do? And what kind of changes can you make in the business to make the avocados last, instead of it being, a 30-day voyage to now a 40-something day voyage?
Yeah.
Right. I'd like to hear from you, Dixon.
Yeah.
We know that feed production in Kenya is a very costly affair, and feed in Kenya is very expensive for farmers to access. I would like to hear from you what your experience has been in terms of remaining competitive despite all those challenges.
I think that has always been a big discussion on the cost of production, and it's across all the commodities in Kenya. And when you talk about, for example, the feed industry, we majorly depend on byproducts of, for example, like wheat and maize, which, form around, 60% of the feed. And unfortunately, as it stands, we are not able even to produce enough within the country, for food consumption in itself. So let alone now move it to feed production. And so we have always had to rely on imports, of maize from other countries such as Uganda, Malawi, and Zambia. And the challenge actually that we're experiencing even at the moment is countries like Zambia have banned the export of maize. And so what we then looking at is, at the moment, in the next probably even coming weeks and months, we're even going to see the cost of feeds go up. So when it comes to thinking about how we can actually be able to lower this cost of production, is really to get into a massive maize production in the country, massive soybean, because soybean is the major source of protein. And so if we can actually scale up the production of these within, then it's very easy to just be able to lower down the cost of production for this. And this, will in turn get feeds at way affordable price for the farmers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think you also have to remember that for maize, we are competing, you know, both human beings and animals for the same produce, which is not even enough for Kenyans as currently is. Well, let me come to you. I'd like to hear your thoughts and in terms of the challenges that you're facing currently.
Yes, for avocado, the main challenge right now is logistics. And like I said, this started last year when the Red Sea closed. We used to ship to our main port of entry for Kenyan avocado is Rotterdam. There is market in Dubai, but the prices just don't compare. So last year, the transit time increased from 28 days to 48 days last year, and currently 40 days. It meant a lot of growing pains for many avocado companies. Some were in losses for the first time in decades. So the main issue there is with increased transit time, the avocados tend to ripen during transit. With the increased transit time, some avocado last year was getting into the market ripe or spoiled, all from over ripening. So it has meant exporters have to come back and tighten their supply chain and give the avocados the best chance to succeed during that trip. Apart from that, it's the usual farmers. The price of avocado does fluctuate during the course of the season, which can significantly increase your cost of shipping and kick out Kenya from the competitiveness of the market, usually towards the end of the season. Yeah.
Right. Kyle, as you listen to these gentlemen, I know that you deal with a lot of startups, especially in the agriculture industry. What is the thing that you would tell founders or people in the startup industry, especially in terms of agriculture, they need to have right to ensure that they're profitable? Is it one thing? Is it a list of things? What would you say?
Yeah, it's a good question. So there's really three things. So we run an acceleration fund. We invest in early stage companies. And what we found is there's really three things that are really key, even more important than money, which is what's surprising. And one of those is focus. What is the thing that you can do really well, right? So, you know, me as a founder as well, I have 27 business ideas before I have breakfast in the morning. But if I do all 27, I'm not going to succeed. But if I choose one, like any one of them, I can probably do pretty decently at that. And so think about, for anyone in business, the tendency is to do, I'm doing quail eggs, I'm going to do avocado, you know, all these different things, and you just can't be the best at 27 things. Like not even Elon Musk has 27 things that he's doing, right? He's a multi-billionaire. So that's the thing we say. It's like, okay, what's a good bet for your business? Where do you want to be? Where's the opportunity? You know, Barry started looking at a bunch of different things, herbs, chilies, avocado. And until he's got one thing that's working really well, it makes sense to really focus on avocado. Another thing that tends to happen is people build some tech solution. We've seen a number of companies in the market build some tech solution in agriculture, when really that's a cost to the business, and they're not really a tech company. And you've seen these companies, like if you're selling bananas with some tech solution, it's still a banana. You can only sell a banana once. Compare that to, let's say, Microsoft Office. Microsoft builds that one time, they can sell it 1 million times, right? If you have a banana once, the tech doesn't enable you to sell the banana multiple times. And so that's where tech gets kind of confused in this market. So we actually avoid agri-tech. And so some companies approach us and they say, I've got this app to do this logistics thing. Like, well, is it better than Uber? Is it better than you just using a WhatsApp and having someone on the phone just calling, buyers and sellers and whatever? Is there really any value to this app? Because it's just a cost center, not a revenue center in most cases. So that's where I see people going astray. They spend lots of money on the tech. One thing to think about is that the Kenyan market is actually relatively small. It's half the size of San Antonio, Texas. And you're saying, like, what's San Antonio, Texas? Exactly. It's not the biggest city in the US, but imagine going to an investor and saying, hey, I want to build my app just for San Antonio, Texas, just the south side. It wouldn't make sense. The market's just not big enough, and most of the tech opportunities are already taken. Like the Facebook of Kenya is Facebook, the Netflix of Kenya is Netflix, the QuickBooks of Kenya is QuickBooks. So the best ones are taken, and the market's not that big. So really, you can buy lots of different software off the shelf, like Zoho or things like that work really well, or QuickBooks. And that's what we recommend for the companies we work with. Instead of building your own tech, see what you can buy for just a few thousand shillings a month.
Right. I'd like to hear from you, Barry. He talked about focus and, deciding exactly what you want to deal in. If you could just tell us your story, how you got to decide I'm doing avocado. Okay. And where did it start even?
Yes, yeah. I was lucky enough to study international business and management at the University of Manchester in the UK. I graduated in 2018. I immediately came back and thought, how am I going to do international business? A bit of research led me to avocado, which is not our highest revenue earner in Kenya, but very easy to, no barriers of entry compared to tea and coffee, and also a very high growth market, both for the business and the industry itself. That's what led me to do avocado, and I've been doing that since first shipments happened in 2021, and I've been doing that ever since. Like Kyle says about focus, of course, as an entrepreneur, you bump into loads of ideas that could potentially make you money, but I've learned to master my craft. First, you have to know everything about avocado, everything. And then you can come back and master your business, like Kyle says. Some people do it at the same time. We joined Kuzana, and that's really what Kuzana helped us do, master your business, accounting, legal, operations. And at this stage in my career, I'm learning to prioritize and value my time. Can someone else do something that's urgent, not important, while I do something that's both urgent and important? So I think it's very crucial for entrepreneurs to have focus, have resilience, and be willing to learn, because the learning never stops.
Right, the learning never stops. Dixon, I see you nodding. Please tell us your story.
For us, when it came to feeds, first we started generally with doing all the feeds, and we started right at the pandemic. So I had these machines that I actually acquired when I was still in school in 2015, and I'd stored them for quite some time. And when during COVID time, I thought I just need to sell these machines. But then it happened that whoever I was selling to was in Nakuru, and with the lockdown, I could not get the machines to them. And by the time the lockdown was over, they had already, proceeded and purchased from some other suppliers. So then I thought maybe I could just make use of them, and that is how we got into it. So when we started, we were doing all the spectrum of feeds, from poultry to pigs and dairy. But then along the way, we had to focus, and our focus really came from the customer, like where was the pain point and where were the farmers that we were dealing with struggling the most. So what we found was pig production was, still new. It's a lucrative venture that is just getting started, and there's still more opportunities to grow around that, and we thought that actually it might be important for us to really focus on this. So for the first year when we were doing all the spectrum, so we did away with all that and decided to focus really on pigs, which is around 90% of our business today. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I want to know now from you the journey since you set up until now. Yeah, how has it been? Would you do it all over again?
Not sure I'd do it all over again.
Okay. Right.
I think like running any other business, it's not easy. The journey for us, we started small. First year, we probably did 1 container to Rotterdam. The second year, 2. Last year, we did 5 containers. The industry shock didn't help. This year, we're projected to do 10 containers, revenue of about 90 million. It's definitely been a journey of growth. You think you know everything, and then you're hit with something else. I always say, like Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan till you get punched in the mouth. So you should expect a lot of that. And it's been a journey of building resilience, building my knowledge in the industry. But for me, what I really do enjoy, and I would do again, is working with the farmers. Mm-hmm. People look at the avocado trees for 3 to 5 years before they fruit. Seeing the joy of that farmer when they deliver their fruit, that's what really is keeping me going now, and creating value across the chain. Yeah.
Right. To you, Dixon, same question. Would you do it all over again?
Wow. I don't want to say just outright yes, because I mean, the journey has not been forgiving, and it's really not forgiving. I mean, the first year we had to close down because we ran into bad customers, we supplied to, and they could not pay us back. And following up with debts was a crisis, and we had to actually remain closed for like 6 months before we could just get a little bit of other capital and refinance it back and get back in business. But so far, so good. And when I think about the journey and the entrepreneurship journey, I realize that first, it's a long journey. It's a lifelong journey. It's going to be extremely difficult. And at a certain point, you're going to need partners and people who could support you in the journey. Because as the saying goes, whatever got you here will not get you there. And so that is where we are at a stage in business. Like, how do we get to the next level? I mean, we have probably done the 0 to 1 part. Now we need to move from 1 to 10. And that is where like partners come in, and people, who could really look at your business and see like what are those critical areas that you need now to be able to scale to the next level. And that is actually how we got into Kuzana. We of course had some initial conversations with Kylie, and I liked the kind of ideas he had about the agribusiness space and what he actually thought that might be important for us to get to the next stage. And that is actually how we got into the program. And so far, I could say, like, over the past around 4 months, we've been able to double up our revenue. And we are looking to now triple even this, beyond where we are, and build a business that, creates employment opportunities first, builds wealth for the farmers, and overall, assists the country in economic development.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think it's very important to also tell those sad moments, when your business closed before you got to where you are, because a lot of people just look at businesses or business persons when they are shining, when things are going well. They don't consider everything else that happens in the background. Kyle, I'd like to come to you and ask you about, they've talked about mastering your craft and then mastering your business. Talk to us about what it takes to master your business. He's talked about the challenges that you had, the debt and all that. How do you get from that to now building a sustainable and successful business?
That's a really good question. I think it's a multi-billion-dollar question, right? And it's different for every company, and it's not like I have the right answer.
Right.
Even with working with these great founders here, I always say, like, I've never run an avocado business. I've never run a pig feed business. I've never run a business that's doing more than, let's say, $500,000 a year in revenue. So I'm here to learn just as much, and we can be, mirrors for each other and help each other improve. What does it take to, one is like just believing. There's 1,000 things, right? To have a sustainable business. I can maybe say, so in my experience, I came to Kenya in 2011, and I had a biogas business. That was the first one. And we installed something like 500 reactors for farmers, gas for cooking. They were super happy. It was amazing. It was magical. This cow dung they had on their farm, they were able to use for cooking, and I thought that was really cool. The problem was it never made money. We never made a profit in 5 years. And my next business was a Thai restaurant, and I was pretty dejected, actually. I started that business accidentally, completely. And I just had gone to Thailand. I cooked for some friends. They're like, can you do this? Can you do that? Pretty soon I was cooking every day. And we made money the first month. It was profitable the first month. So I realized it wasn't that I was a bad entrepreneur. I just didn't know how to go after that particular opportunity, and this one actually made a lot more sense. So one thing to think about as an entrepreneur is what's the right opportunity for you. What's the right founder market fit? And then what else can I add to that? So that worked much better. But then we ended up closing down. The landlord's like, they canceled the lease because I forgot to get a long-term lease. It was a month-by-month lease, and they turned it into a car lot. And so I went back to the States, and my investors got no money back. And for I want to say 2 years, I had my tail between my legs for sure, right? Just because it's embarrassing, right? Because I'm American. I came here, and my friends were doing investment banking, and they were making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And I was like, you know what, I think Africa's a huge opportunity and it's gonna go really well. And then, it knocked me down.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is what, 14 years later, finally, we found some things that actually work and are able to build a business. So there's very few get-rich-quick schemes. As Warren Buffett says, the best moat is patience, because almost no one has the patience to stick around for 14 years.
Right. I would like us to talk about a problem that has faced startups in Kenya. We know that some startups have grown, gotten some crazy amounts of funding, and then gone down. You mentioned the issue of agri-tech versus, what exactly are you selling? And we know that Twiga Foods is one of them. There are others which we can name that have shut down. So I would like to understand from your experience, sustainable organic growth, so to say, as opposed to, getting the money now and then scaling and scaling and scaling, and then you shut down in a year or two. I would like to hear from all of you, actually. I'll start with you, Pari.
Yeah, I think the number one thing is when you do get lucky enough to raise that money, like you're saying, value it, value every penny of it. I was told once, I heard somewhere, treat it like a loan from the bank, high interest.
Yeah.
What would you do with that? You would not go out and squander it. You'd value every penny. Like you're saying, a lot of companies have raised money and managed to mess it up. Also for entrepreneurs, don't be afraid to react. Value your company will produce information through your accounting, through your advisors. Don't be afraid to react, and don't scale for scaling's sake. If you see something wrong in your business, pivot out. Do something else. If you need to completely go into a new product line, do it. React to the information you're getting from your business, and you should be in a better position.
Right. Thank you, Dixon.
So first, when I think about startup success and failure, so first I'd like to say that we still have a lot of agribusinesses that are actually successful. When you think about companies like KBL, when you think about Bitco, those are all agro-processing companies.
Right.
Kakuzi, those are agro-processing companies, and these are multi-billion revenue generating companies that are creating opportunities. So when I think about now the failure part of it, I think first is to just understand the business model and be honest and truthful to yourself even when you're running a business, because eventually you definitely know if something is working or not working. And you also need to be able to communicate that directly to your investors and tell them that, look, initially we had this great idea that we thought this could work, but along the way we have found that actually it's not working. So it's either we pivot to something that works, or we just run it down the drain. And if you have investors who care and who understand, then they should be able to say that it's fine. Then can you try and see how you can pivot or try something different? Of course they should be flexible in a way. So when I think about it that way, then I realize there's still opportunity. There's still a lot of agribusinesses that could receive that kind of investment and definitely create value. And at the same time, there's something that Kylie said, that look, Kenya, in as much as it's a big market, it's not as big as you might want to think. And therefore, even as you're building, you need to build with that in mind, that you just can't, be spending all this money thinking that, you're going to grow this business in X number of years. The greatest businesses that we have had in the country, they have grown over 15, 20, 25 years. And you want to do what someone did in 30 years, in 5 years. The likelihood of success really goes down lower. So we need more patient people, patient capital, and to be clear to the people that we are working with. Yeah.
Right, patient capital, he says. Kyle, I would like to now hear from you the same question about
sustainable growth.
Yes, please.
Yeah, what happened in Kenya was a bubble. So there's lots of capital flooded in with the assumption there's going to be huge growth in Africa, therefore let's pump lots of money in. And that assumption was correct. The timing, though, was a bit off. And this is something you see throughout history. History repeats itself. We had the dot-com bubble in the US in 2000. Lots of companies grew huge. They had money just getting dumped into them at whatever valuation, and most of them failed. But some of them succeeded, like Amazon and Google. Those ones are still around. They've done very, very well. So the idea was correct. The internet is huge. It is a huge opportunity. We have to be patient for it, like Dixon said. And so what happens, you saw companies just getting lots of money, and the problem is money is an addiction. It becomes a drug. You know, it goes straight to your veins, and you just spend it on things. And if there's not a good opportunity, you spend it on things that are not that relevant. And so you have to just be very careful where you're getting the money from. There's lots of, USAID is pumping lots of money into this market, lots of international. I think the banks did a good job. Kenyan banks did a good job in being very conservative, but the international money was just, it was just like they're just throwing money everywhere, right? And so they became like the sugar daddies, the mubabas, right? And the problem with that is you don't develop discipline with a sugar daddy kind of experience versus a bank which says we need to see our money back, every month, and then at the end we're going to get all of our money back, right? And it's a very more disciplined approach, and that actually builds great capacity. And so, I mean, that's what you want to see is, more disciplined growth, and know that bubbles do happen, and that's normal. But there is still a huge opportunity.
There is still huge opportunity, and for inclusivity's sake, also sugar mummies. Right. Let's talk about, you've said that the Kenyan market is very small, comparatively. There is the African market. I would like to hear if this is a market that entrepreneurs can focus on. When AFCFTA, the free trade area, the African Continental Free Trade Area, it's supposed to open up all these opportunities for entrepreneurs. But the challenge I've had from a lot of entrepreneurs is that the market fragmentation in Africa is very high. Understanding Kenya does not necessarily mean that you will succeed or understand Tanzania. So I'd like to hear from you if that is something that startups and founders should be looking at, and what loopholes they need to watch out for. Any takers?
Yeah, so if you do business in Morocco, you're going to do business in English, you're going to travel through Europe, and you're going to do business in dollars, right? So these are the challenges you're talking about, but at the same time, it's a big opportunity. So you can see how eventually there'll be more integration. The other thing to consider is that Kenya is a relatively large market. I think the difference between Kenya and Uganda is the same as between US and Poland. So it's a very big difference. Kenya has a huge head start. The entrepreneurs here can expand to the region. So there's they're protected in this market, and then they'll grow. Bell Feeds, Uganda, Tanzania, Congo will happen next because he'll have a good foothold there, right? As far as dealing with the fragmentation, for us, we've just focused on investing in Kenya, only Kenya at the moment. Again, just to have focus.
Right.
It's a really great market, and there is challenges. Some of the companies we work with are importing, from Zambia. One of the colleagues who couldn't make it here today is importing, they are flying here, but their flight was canceled 3 times, unfortunately. There's no direct flight between the capital of Tanzania and the capital of Kenya. And so these are kind of integration things which are going to happen. These are business opportunities, too.
Right, the challenges are definitely opportunities.
Yeah, and there's different, very interesting models I've seen of doing barter trade. So you send your Bidco oil to Zambia, you sell in local currency, you buy soybeans there in local currency, you bring it back. And so there's lots of different interesting things. I mean, the thing that really attracted me to Kenya, I traveled all around Africa, I ended up here, and I was just like, wow, there's this hustle, and there's this excitement, and there's this entrepreneurial activity that I found very special here. And so this country is perfectly positioned to find where the opportunity is as the free trade increases.
Right.
Every year is getting better.
Right. Dixon, your thoughts on Kenya being the perfect opportunity for regional expansion?
So Kenya definitely is really a perfect place to start if you think about East Africa. And when even we think about Africa, even within Belfits, of course we do realize some other countries that, there's Nigeria, there's South Africa as potential countries for us. But when it comes to Kenya, when you talk, for example, about income, income in Kenya is slightly higher as compared to our neighbors. And so it means there's opportunity for to service the market a little bit better. And also there's opportunity to still source from other countries. The challenge though that comes is even as we talk about the free trade place, there's still a lot of taxes you need to pay to get over the counter. The infrastructure is still not as good, so it will probably take you 2 weeks to ship from Zambia. Potentially, this should be done a little bit faster, because by the time maybe the goods land, the price has already changed. So there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of infrastructure to be able to, integrate a little better so that we can be able to source, we can be able to expand. The other thing is, doing businesses in Kenya is different. Also, doing business in Tanzania, doing business in Uganda or even Ethiopia. So the other thing we're then asking ourselves is, how do we really make it common in a way that the way you can do business in Kenya is the way you can just do business in Uganda. When you talk about things like finance, for example, sending money across the border still, can be slightly expensive. So then you try to find even banks, to work with banks that are integrated regionally, so that you can be able to do that. But still, as we say, like, all these challenges are actually opportunities that are still waiting to be tapped into, because when we have, at that point, we make all this efficient, then, we'll have really succeeded and created opportunity, yeah.
Right.
If I can add one thing to that.
Sure.
Yeah, every problem is an opportunity,
Yeah.
especially for an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I remember one time I was on Gong Road, my other house, and we heard this traffic outside, and it was all blocked up. And my friend and I were like, oh, this is so annoying. We're like, wait a second, every problem's an opportunity. So we made popcorn, we made lemonade, and we went down the road and we sold it. And they thought it was the most hilarious thing. Two Wazungu going down the road, Gong Road, selling lemonade and popcorn. It didn't make me $1 million, but we had a lot of fun. We got a lot of laughs. And so there's just an opportunity in every single problem, if you can just reframe it that way.
Right, opportunity. Barry?
Yes, the opportunity exists. Kenya is lucky to be, we are blessed with the port of Mombasa. The infrastructure compared to our neighbors is much better here. So, for example, in crops are seasonal. Avocado grows in Kenya April to September. In Tanzania, it's different. It doesn't mean Tanzanians don't want to eat avocado during those times. And the same applies for many products outside of tech, which is easily scalable. So the opportunity is there, and I think it's up to our governments to really open up the ease of doing business to allow us to tap into this opportunity. For a personal example would be, avocado is 0 rated across the East African community, but crossing the border, the gentleman down there at the border will always ask you for something. Just create ease in doing business, which will keep the costs where they should be for businesses to make their margins. And there are so many products we can send out of Kenya. Avocado, there's mango. We are surrounded by drier countries that don't grow as much. So if we can tap into those opportunities, inter-Africa trade could be huge.
Right. You've mentioned the issue of things like taxation and opening up the borders. And of course, we know that sometimes we are very good at coming up with papers, but implementation is a problem, yeah? So I'd like to hear from you, if you were to speak to government officials, what more do you think can be done, even in the area that you deal in terms of the regulatory policy framework, to support more small businesses to venture into those markets? Dixon?
Yeah, so of course, when it comes to policy, first I could of course start with, there's taxes and then there's capital. Can we actually just lower the cost of capital? What is it that the government can do to really lower the cost of capital? Because if you're getting capital at 20%, annual interest rate, what kind of business do they need to do, to be able to pay 20% in interest to the bank, pay, your suppliers, pay your employees, and still be able to remain sustainable? So it's very few businesses actually. And so first is capital. The cost of capital is still very, very high, and there's definitely needs to be policy around that. I think the other thing is already I've seen this being done, for example, in Nairobi, unified business permit. That I think was long overdue because initially, we had to have, I don't know, like 5 or 6 different licenses to operate, and you could only find about these licenses when they have visited your premise, that you actually need to have these licenses. But unifying these business permits, for example, is something that been good, and now it's easy to operate, and potentially I think it's something that should be done across the country. So because when we move across the counties, we meet some of these resistances. The other thing is on, of course, taxation. What can the government, do to assist around taxation? Like still the taxes are very high, even on the raw materials that we actually get to use. So what is it that can be done still around that? Because eventually when I think all this is actually settled at least, then there's going to be more opportunity to create more business environment here.
Thank you. Barry, your thoughts?
I think the main thing I can think of is just opening up the cross-border trade. I had a truck that was coming from Tanzania last year with fruits. It spent 24 hours trying to cross the border. Maybe there could be special permits for these drivers where they don't spend as much time at our borders. For fresh produce, it's really crucial. The other thing is, can we have more trade finance from our own government, perhaps? Things like invoice discounting, things like LPO financing that facilitate this cross-border trade. And like Dixon says, taxation is important. I personally believe more agricultural products should be zero-rated, or rather exempt, not zero-rated. So if the government is to help us, they should focus on those areas.
Right. We know that agriculture is the backbone of the Kenyan economy, and yet year in, year out, the budget allocation comes at below 3%. What does this say in terms of the will to support this industry or this sector?
Yeah, so I think that there's adding more budget, not necessarily the necessary thing. If you can just enable the environment, it'll work. And so you've seen some industries be deregulated, like pyrethrum, and then new companies would sprout up to make it work and are very efficient. And there's actually not that much budget required. Maybe I'd like to say some of the good things I see the government doing as well. As an entrepreneur, the best thing is if there's no taxes. The next best thing is if the taxes are evenly and equally applied. And increasingly, we're seeing that be the case. Because if it's not equally applied, then it's only the people doing illegal business who are the ones who are able to compete. But now, once it's equally applied, then everyone's a level playing field for everyone. I think the government's doing a really good job of just, making sure that everyone, the same rules apply to everyone. So I think that's really good. Yeah, I think that I can leave it at that.
Right. Barry, you work with a lot of farmers. Tell us, first of all, how you do it. Is it contract farming, or do you just go randomly to farms to source your produce?
No, we contract farmers directly. We found over time that it creates a better outcome for quality. We don't just do that. We try and create ecosystems of growth for our farmers. We have agronomists that work with them year-round, working on the best practices. We also provide organic inputs to them on credit for our most trusted farmers, and then they can come back and we can come back and deduct that from their harvest. And this is an idea that farmers are loving. We're also introducing them to spraying via drones, but only for larger farms. So we try and do more than the average company, and we try and form a real partnership with the farmers. Eventually, we are working on a program similar to Kakuzi that would give the farmers a profit share in our profits. So for us, we do more, and we love it. We love it.
Right. So for these farmers that you have worked with, you can also chime in on this, Dixon. We know that there's not been a lot of support from the public sector, the government, in terms of extension services and all the other access to other things. So and that cost is now transferred to like the companies such as yours or the farmers themselves, right? Are those some of the things that can be taken over by the government so that it eases the costs on your side?
For sure, government can do more, less even to ease the cost. It's impossible for us to cover all of the farmers in Kenya, even if the biggest exporters came together, but our government has that capacity. County governments maybe can do that. The farmers really do, they are resilient because despite all of this, you can see what they do. They're pushing a significant portion of our economy. So I think any small help for them will make a really big difference. Yeah.
Right. Dixon?
Yeah, so when I think about, extension services is, I think growing up, grew up in a community of smallholder farmers. And I could recall, agricultural extension officers actually visiting our farm, visiting my parents to just see what's going on in the farm, providing some form of advisory. But over time, that really has changed. And as it stands, actually, I think in the country at the moment, there's a ratio of 1:5,000 or 10,000, something like that. So it's very difficult for farmers to be able to access those extension services. And so when now it comes to private companies like ourselves, then we definitely we struggle with that. And so there's a cost aspect. For example, even internally, we have veterinary officers, and these are extension officers, paid fully by the company. And the goal is to assist the farmers that we work with to do just the right thing in the farm. You see, potentially this is something that, the county governments and national government could have easily taken. And my thinking around it is, I think there's something that the government, I think, is trying to do at the moment, organizing farmers, bringing them together. Potentially that could help, because then if you build communities of farmers together who are doing a common thing, then it's really easy to be able to provide these services to them at a cost-effective level and deliver services to them. And yeah, so maybe there's still more to be done around organization and extension services for the farmers. Yeah.
Yes,
I'd
please,
add
Kyle.
one thing to that,
Yeah.
which is something very special that Bell Feeds does. There's a new technology which enables you to communicate with people across the world almost for free and instantaneously, called social media.
Yeah.
And that potential is for people like Barry and Dixon. And in fact, for Bell Feeds, the majority of their sales come from social media. You're like, wow, how does someone sell pig feed on social media and buy pork? And yet it's happening, right? And so this is going to transform across the country, across the ecosystem. But they can train people much more efficiently. There's even a show, Shamba Shape Up. They did a nice job of basically agricultural extension at a very low cost to sensitize farmers. Now each individual company can now do that same extension work in WhatsApp groups. Dixon has dozens of Facebook groups for pig farmers specifically, that then they can help those farmers in Maranga. What do you need for this kind of thing, right? And so even the government isn't even needed as much for these kinds of things as this new technology has come in. So it's a really interesting time, and we don't even know how huge this can be. Like I said, we're at like 1/6 the yield of where we could be.
Yeah.
And so there's just a huge gap that things like social media can help with.
I could add to that. It's very interesting because in other countries you see they've gone to digitizing the extension services. Our farmers don't have a lot of money, but they do have smartphones. These extension services could all be done online now. You could have a call in with an agronomist. There's scanning. You could scan your crop and a system can tell you what's wrong. So something like that maybe is something that could be implemented faster with support from the government, with support from private companies. Maybe the future is to digitize.
The future is to digitize.
Yes.
Well, the future is here already. Kyle, before we close the conversation, I'd like us to talk just a little bit about Kuzana and what you do, the reason why they are part of your, just tell us more about it.
Yeah, so I'm the founder of Kuzana. We're an investment acceleration fund. So we invest in SMEs, and our goal is to mint 1,000 more millionaires. And this is something that's very doable. It's
Dollar millionaires?
Dollar millionaires.
Okay.
Yeah, I think most of us are shillionaires already, right? Dollar millionaires. And, these, millionaires, they create this middle class, pay more taxes, request more accountability from their providers, service providers. And so that's one thing. And then the program itself is 12 weeks. We have a workshop every Friday where people bring whatever it is. Like I said, it's not for me to tell people how to run their business. It's for Barry to say, what's your challenge with raising capital this week? Okay, let's work through that. Dixon, do you have any ideas for Barry and what he can do, right? It was so successful, actually, that afterwards, people were like, we need to do more of this. We can't stop now. Every Friday. So every Friday, we have Kuzana Club. They join a meeting every Friday and just report on what happened that week and what your goals are and what the challenges are. And the funny thing is, they're able to help each other even much more than I can. So Bellfeeds needed to have some upcountry depots, and Barry's like, oh, I've got 2 depots you guys can use for a few months for free, test it out, very low risk to you, and then we take it from there, right? And so I mentioned there's 3 things that are more important than money we found, and the second one is community, right? So just as an entrepreneur, you want to be independent, but you're human, and so you really crave connection. And you can't talk to your customers about your problems. You can't talk to your employees about your problems. So you kind of need each other to talk to and bounce ideas around. We don't provide that much capital. I think the best thing is the capital of community. And the funny thing is, as foreigners coming to Kenya, usually they try to force the American way of doing things. And yet we know, if I were to ask you, which country has stronger sense of community between the US and Kenya, I don't even need to answer that question. You already know, right? So why don't we take advantage of that natural resource, which is here, and we found it to be even much more successful than we thought, how companies are able to help each other, feel good, get back on the horse. Like I mentioned, I was off the horse for 2 years after I was feeling dejected. Now it's like, next Friday, you talk to other entrepreneurs who have similar problems, and you're like, it's life. So that's what we do. We make equity investments. I think we'll make more equity investments in Kenyan companies this year than any other investor. There's many people doing loans, many people investing in US companies that then are working here, but investing in Kenyan companies with equity, I think we're doing the most.
Is this patient capital?
Very patient. Good. Glad you asked. Yeah.
Yeah, so, we have to ask, yeah.
Yeah, like a lot of investors, they need to get their return in 7 years. This is even hard in the US market. So in the US market, like Uber took 12 years to go public. So why was it going to take less time in a more nascent market, right? So for us, we invest, we plan to hold forever, as long as Barry and Dixon will have us, right? And then we will go public, hopefully on Nairobi Securities Exchange in a few years to get liquidity for our investors, but we don't need to sell the underlying investments at all. And we can just keep growing. Berkshire Hathaway, I think they went public after 26 years. They're still there. They still own the companies. They haven't sold much of the underlying companies. Why can't we make the same work here?
Right. Gentlemen, I'll give each of you 30 seconds to give me your closing remarks. I'll start with you, Dixon.
So when you talk about, of course, agribusiness, there's a big opportunity to fast, create jobs in the country, create wealth for people, and also to assist in the economic development of our country. And this opportunity remains to be untapped. And it's across local production, to exports, just name it all. And so it's a big opportunity right now. If you're out there, go straight to it, take it up, and try to do something and see what comes out of it. Otherwise, it's a good place to be invested in at the moment. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Kyle.
Yeah. And can I mention our website?
Sure. I think if people want to, if someone is thinking about, seeking capital from you or any kind of support, you can.
Yeah. Yeah. So we want to mint 1,000 more millionaires, and we want the audience to be among those 1,000. So if they're interested, they should check out kuzana.co, and they can apply there. We're accepting applications for the next batch. And think of it like a chama for the most ambitious, fastest growing SMEs.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Barry?
To me, For the entrepreneurs, most entrepreneurs that are successful have very similar traits. So if you're out there and you have a business, the opportunities are there. Seek them and stay resilient, stay committed to your business, motivate yourself, and above all, thank God. Yeah.
Thank God indeed. Thank you very much. I think that's a beautiful way to end the conversation. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Karibu sana. I have been speaking about agriculture value addition with my very able panel, Kyle Shatter, who is the CEO of Kuzana, Dixon Ayuka, CEO of Bell Feeds, and Barry Aluvanze, CEO of Aluvana Avocado. Of course, if you are looking to access that particular funding or you just want any support in terms of agriculture value chain, do get in touch with kuzana.co.ke. This is BizCheck. When we come back, we shall be having a conversation about the Nairobi-Mombasa Expressway. What does it look like? Set to start construction in 2026. We shall be talking to Ambassador Kyle Makata, who is a partner at Everstrong Capital and also a former ambassador to Kenya. Do stay with us.
Je, umewahi kuwa na deni ya KRA? Basi usiwe na shaka. KRA wakishirikiana na KBC wamekuandalia roadshow murwa kabisa. Jiunge nasi tukufahamishe kuhusu KRA Tax Amnesty Program na jinsi utakavyoweza kusamehewa adhabu na riba na KRA. Pia tutakuwa tunakusaidia kujaza fomu za kodi za mwaka 2024 na kukusaidia na huduma za KRA kwa mtaa wako. Jumatano tarehe 7 mwezi Mei tutakuwa maeneo ya Thika Road, TRM, Mombasa Road, Pipeline, Bahati, Kariobangi, Buruburu Shopping Center, Fedha, Kayole, Dandora, Mwiki, Kasarani, tumalizie Roysambu. Kisha Alhamisi tarehe 8 mwezi Mei tutazuru maeneo ya Westlands, Kangemi, Uthiru, Kinoo, Dagoretti, Satellite, Kibra, Ngong Road, Nairobi West, Karen, Ngong na hatimaye Rongai. KRA, tulipe ushuru, tujitegemee.
They say the earth without art would just be get it? We circumnavigate the globe and traverse the local scene to bring you art and culture at their very best. From fine art, culinary art, performing arts, and even cultural events, you name it, and we have got you covered. My name is Kevin Kasioki, and I will be serving you this and much, much more each and every Friday at 8 p.m. only on KBC Channel 1.
Okay.
Is it good? Thank you for staying with Channel 1. This is BizCheck, and we are now in the second hour of the program. Before we get into our studio conversation, I'd like to take you to Harambee House, where the Inspector General of Police, Kanja, is giving an update on the investigation of the fatal shooting of the Kasipul Member of Parliament, Charles Ongondo Were. Let's listen into that.
the National Police Service, which is to provide a comprehensive update on the ongoing investigations into the tragic murder of Honorable Charles Ongodowere, Member of Parliament of Focus Pool, which occurred on April 30, 2025. At approximately 7:40 p.m. on April 30, 2025, the Honorable Charles Were was fatally shot while driving in a white Toyota Crown along Gong Road, near the City Mushari roundabout in Nairobi. The vehicle had stopped at a red traffic light when a motorcycle carrying a rider and a pillion passenger pulled alongside. The pillion passenger approached the passenger side of the vehicle, fired multiple shots, and fled the scene on a motorcycle. The driver and the bodyguard, both unharmed, lurched the honorable member to Nairobi Hospital, where he was pronounced dead on arrival. A specialized team from the DCI Homicide Bureau, supported by forensics experts from the National Forensics Laboratory, was promptly deployed to the crime scene. The team conducted thorough examinations, collecting critical evidence that has significantly and advanced the investigations. Detectives reconstructed Honorable Were's movement from Parliament to the site of the shooting, generating the key leads that have helped identify potential suspects. The driver and the bodyguard were taken into custody to assist in the ongoing probe. On May 2, 2025, an autopsy was conducted at Lee Funeral Home by Dr. Johansen Odwori, Chief Government Pathologist, in the presence of the Director of Homicides Investigations, forensics experts, family members, the legal counsel, representatives from Parliament. The examinations revealed that the Honorable Were sustained 5 gunshot wounds, all entering the left side of his body. 2 bullets were recovered during the autopsy, and a third was found in the deceased's motor vehicle. These exhibits were submitted for ballistics analysis. Other exhibits collected at the initial stages of the investigations includes surveillance footage capturing critical movements before and after the incident, identification of a vehicle used to transport the suspects to the crime scene, and financial proceeds linked to the suspects. These exhibits are undergoing forensic analysis to further strengthen the case and clarify the circumstances surrounding Honorable Were's murder. Thorough, meticulous forensic work, 4 suspects directly linked to the crime scene were arrested. Some of them are believed to be members of the Mujahideen, an organized criminal gang known for armed robberies in Nairobi Eastlands area. On May 5, 2025, the 4 suspects were presented before the JKA court, where investigators secured a 30-day custodial order to facilitate further inquiries. The case is scheduled for mention on June 5, 2025. 2 additional suspects have been apprehended following the arrest. The 2 led investigators to residence where key evidence was recovered, including 2 firearms, a Little Falcon pistol, and a Sismas pistol, a bag, and a footwear matching the descriptions of items worn by one of the suspects at the crime scene. All the recovered items were submitted for forensic examinations. Furthermore, 2 more key suspects were arrested yesterday, bringing the number of suspects in custody to 10. Today, I stand before you with significant findings from comprehensive ballistic investigations regarding the tragic demise of Hon Charles Were. The ballistics report we have received unequivocally links the Sismas pistol recovered from the residence of one of the suspects to the fatal shots that took his life. This critical piece of evidence not only identifies the weapon used in this heinous act, but also refutes its involvement in the series of other criminal activities. Specifically, the same firearm has been implicated in 3 separate robbery incidences across Nairobi and Kiambu counties, with the most recent crime occurring on April 26, 2025. This progress demonstrates the National Police Service commitment to resolving this case with the highest standards of professionalism and diligence. We will continue to pursue all the leads, analyze forensic evidence, and ensure that all perpetrators are brought to justice. We are grateful to the cooperation of Honorable Were's family, friends, and members of the public, whose valuable information has driven significant progress in this investigation. We urge anyone with additional information to contact their nearest police stations or use our toll-free lines. All information provided will be treated with utmost confidentiality. As I conclude, I want to assure all Kenyans that we are committed to pursuing this investigation with utmost diligence to ensure that all those involved are brought to justice. Further updates will be provided as the investigation progresses. Thank you.
That is the Inspector General of Police there giving an update on the investigation into the death of Kasipul Member of Parliament Charles Ongondo Were, and of course his funeral is set for tomorrow. We shall be updating you on that as well during our subsequent bulletins. We now get back to studio and start off our second conversation of the day with Ambassador Kyle Makata, who is a partner at Everstrong Capital, and we want to understand exactly what the Nairobi-Mombasa Expressway construction will look like. The $3.6 billion project is set to begin construction in early 2026. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Betty.
Karibu sana. Take us through, you spoke, was it yesterday or a few days ago? You said, Monday. Yeah, on Monday. You said 12 to 13 shillings per kilometer Kenyans will be paying to use this road. That comes to about 5,000 or slightly above. Yeah. From Nairobi to Mombasa. How did we get there?
How did we get there? Well, first of all, this is a project that probably should have been done 20 years ago. This is the entryway to Africa through a very valuable corridor that really isn't what it could be. I tell people that what we're putting together is a wealth corridor that just happens to have a road going down the middle of it. Mm-hmm. And but you have to have the infrastructure to move the goods and the services and increase that prosperity. And so what we have, what Everstrong has done is taken the work of some others in the past that really hasn't been offered in the right way. Previously, this road is this expressway from Nairobi to Mombasa has been looked at as in different ways, in government-to-government loans and all kinds of things. And given the situation that Kenya's in today, with their debt situation, that was just not going to be one of the solutions. So after I left the embassy in 2021, I came with Everstrong Capital, who has had other investments in Africa. But this one has become the priority because this is the real need for East Africa. And so we put together a way to do this to where there's no debt on the Kenyan balance sheet. And we did it to where there's a value for money proposition that's good for the users, and the road will pay for itself. Now, some people say, well, there's a toll, and that's how you pay for the road. I mean, we're bringing $3.6 billion to Kenya to build this road. And it has to be paid for in some way, and reasonable tolls where there's value for money is the solution. And so what we've put together is a very detailed plan for a 4 to 6 lane dual carriage road from Lulango to Mariakani. And in that corridor, you'll see 12 new exits. You'll see 8 rest areas that are on the expressway to where you can easily pull off, get petrol, rest, shop, and then get right back onto the road. Well, you'll also see easy access to as many as 4 master plan new cities, putting targeted investments into each one of those communities. Some in agriculture, some in technology, some in mineral processing. Mariakani will be kind of a technology bedroom community to Mombasa. Konza, we know what's going on there in technology. We'll have an opportunity for others to build there as well. Salama and Voi. And so this will be easy access to these new communities that are focusing on bringing foreign investors in to increase the prosperity in the corridor. Essentially, you're talking about taking the time of travel from 10.5 hours to 4.5 hours. The logistics companies, the trucks, really is much of they're challenged to safely drive on this road today because of the way it's built, and it really is the problem. They're not the problem; the road's the problem. And so so this will be an alternative. This will be a separate alignment. The old road will be the alternative for people that don't want to pay the tolls, passenger vehicles that don't want to pay the tolls. Now, for safety reasons, those trucks will be using the new expressway. It's a great value proposition for them. They save in fuel, they save in maintenance. They're able to deliver their products even 2 times, have 2 times as many trips from Nairobi to Mombasa and back. And it's a real game changer for them.
Right.
In fact, everyone we talk to, that's the one thing that comes up. This is a game changer.
As you speak, I'm hearing that your target markets are the truckers.
Well,
are they your target market?
I think anyone that wants to safely get from Nairobi to Mombasa and back is our target market. But it will be a restricted expressway, just as the current expressway is restricted. Now, we're very thankful for this expressway in Nairobi, because this is a case study that the Kenyan people understand the value in paying a toll. Whether it's fuel savings, whether it's time savings, whether it's safety, that expressway has proven that this is a good concept for Kenya. So, no, we're targeting anyone that wants to go from Nairobi to Mombasa.
Right. When you do the math, 5,000 shillings is toll fees. You've not done your fuel, and you're saying 4.5 hours. Mm-hmm. That could easily get to around 20,000 shillings. There are low-cost carriers that give a Nairobi to Mombasa trip one way of about 4,000, 5,000, if you plan your trip in good time. So how will you appeal to this person who is thinking like that?
Well, no, we think the value's there. I mean, in the fuel savings, whether that's fuel savings is 2,000, 3,000, for a V8 could be even 4,000. That's the balance of that 5,000 is a decision as to safety. It's a decision as to time. I mean, think about it. On a Friday, you can decide at noon that you want to spend a weekend in Mombasa, or vice versa. Mombasa, you can spend a weekend in Nairobi. You can decide that at noon, and be there before dark. You can spend Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday, and at noon, come back before dark without, you know, right now, if you take this trip today, you need another, once you come back, you need a holiday. Because you're exhausted from the, you know, the 10, 11-hour battle and the danger of getting back. We always say, and we joke in our office that this Nairobi-Mombasa road today causes you to be closer to God. because you're thankful when you get back alive.
Well, that is true. I mean, every time you're driving down to Mombasa, it's very high adrenaline, no matter how good a driver you are
Very
or
tense.
how responsible you are.
Yes.
It's like the design and the usage of the road just doesn't work. So maybe this is the answer that has, you know,
We
people
think
have
so.
been looking for.
And what is safety worth, right? I mean, there's so many fatalities on this road. And it's not just safer for people, it's safer for the wildlife too. The wildlife that'll kill on this highway every year is tremendous. And what we've built into this road is a design to where when we go through Savo, we keep the same alignment. We're building a new road, but it'll be in the same area. And everywhere there's known migration across that road, we'll have animal overpasses. So the road goes underneath, the animals retain their line of sight, and they migrate as usual, and then the road goes underneath. We're putting lookouts at those areas to where people can conveniently pull off from an elevated area, see the game, have a picnic lunch, use a clean restroom, and get right back on the road. We think this is going to be one of the reasons people use this expressway, primarily just for that, just to be able to experience Savo on the road.
And it will be running parallel to the existing road?
Yes.
Right. I'd like to hear from you your incorporation of electric, you know, amenities, so to say, because the time when it will be built, a lot of electric cars will be in Kenya, based on the projections. So what are you doing to ensure that you accommodate EV drivers?
So we're partnering with the fuel companies and other investors to put charging at every rest area and every stop. And so this will be, you know, the challenge with EV, the challenge with electric vehicles is, for instance, if you want to go from Mombasa all the way to the interior of Africa, you wouldn't be able to do it because they don't have the infrastructure on the charging. This will be dedicated infrastructure from Nairobi to Mombasa to where you can be sure that you're going to have a place to charge up along the whole route. And a lot of these new EV vehicles are not capable of handling the very difficult roads that we have in Kenya today. But this one, because it's a state-of-the-art OSHA type, I'm sorry, it's a high-quality road that these new EV vehicles will be able to ride on.
Right, so EV drivers should be comfortable on that road.
Yes, actually they should be excited.
Right, excited is the word. There are a lot of bottlenecks that projects have faced in this country. You know, sometimes we say completion was set for 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and we are still there.
Yeah.
How are you working to ensure that you keep your timelines, you know, as planned?
Well, here's the thing. I noticed this sentiment in your previous a show, and that is we need government, but sometimes we just need government to allow the private sector to operate freely.
Okay.
And that's the advantage with this project. This was a PIP, a privately invested proposal, using the current PPP Act in Kenya. We are paying for the road with private investors, and I want to get to that because some of these investors are very, very special.
Okay.
And it's the reason this project is different than anything else in Africa today.
Please.
But the government is giving us the ability to freely invest, and with a 30-year concession, we get our money back, and at the end of 30 years, this road is turned over to Kenya. It's their road. Now, who invests in this road? There will be many American investors from the Development Finance Corporation of the United States, the Import-Export Bank of the United States. That's about $1 billion. Everstrong, we're the equity stakeholders in this for another $1 billion. But there's another $1 billion in debt coming from the Kenya pension funds. County Pension Fund has been given a mandate to put together an infrastructure bond so that all of the local banks, all of the pension funds, all of the insurance companies can invest in this project. You say, well, why is that? It is unique, but why is it important? Because Kenya has skin in the game. Kenya has an investment in this. It's theirs. And I always tell people this road will be invested in, built by, and owned by Kenyans. And we think that's the best strategy for Africa as a whole. We think every project should be like this. It shouldn't be just foreigners coming in and deciding what their profit margin is, or imposing high debt on the host country. That's the opposite way it should take place. We think this is the best way. We think it's respectful, we think it's affordable, and we think it gives Kenya the ability to become self-reliant and take care of themselves.
We have spoken to engineers in Kenya, and they have over time complained that a lot of these infrastructure projects, they are not involved, or their involvement is very minimal, and they are done by, foreigners.
Yes.
So I would like to hear from you exactly what you're doing to ensure that the jobs that are given to Kenyans are not just, the menial jobs, so to say. It's the money-making jobs.
This is another feature of this investment. I doubt there will be too many civil engineers left in this country that are not involved in this project.
Okay.
I mean, you're talking about 5 different sections of road of 459 kilometers. You'll see some of our contractors that come in with some of their senior, more experienced toll road managing, developers. They'll all have some of their expats, but that'll be very few. This road is going to be built by Kenyans. So I doubt you're going to have too many engineers left in the country. They're not working in some fashion on this road because the investment's so big. And even Everstrong Capital, our core group is Kenyans. I mean, my partner, Phil Dyke, who is the managing and founding partner of Everstrong, we find our most dependable, our most talented and effective people that come right here from Kenya. And we don't have to go looking elsewhere.
Right. Home. This is where it's going to happen.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. That is very important. And thank you very much. I'd like to give you a minute or so to give us your closing remarks and how the future looks in terms of this road that we're expecting.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to come on and talk about it. We're excited because we believe that usahihi, meaning done correctly, is different. We believe this is the new way. We think not just the new way for the Nairobi-Mombasa Expressway, but the new way for infrastructure in Africa for the future. It has tremendous buy-in and ownership and involvement from the host nation, and we believe this is the way it should be. And we believe that too, if we demonstrate on this large scale how you do something right, without the traditional ways of doing business, if we do this on this large scale and we do it right, we will show that it's the best thing we can do to deal with corruption in this country. Just do it right, because there will be enough prosperity for everyone, and in that prosperity, we'll see that this is the new way and the way to do it in the future.
Interesting. You've mentioned corruption, and I'm like,
that is a C word, and I apologize for the C word, but it's the reality that this is the way to do it correctly, and we can succeed in this way, and we can all prosper in this way.
Right. We shall be there to see how this goes. Thank you very much, Ambassador. That is Ambassador Kyle Makata. He is a partner at Everstrong Capital, the firm that is going to be constructing the Nairobi-Mombasa Expressway, which shall be starting construction early 2026. And of course, we shall be keeping tabs on the progress of that particular infrastructure project. And now we would like to just take a little break here with magical scenes to take you to Lake Victoria to just have a look at those magical scenes down there. Let's listen into that.
Lake Victoria is the largest inland lake in Africa and the largest tropical lake in the world. Kenya is advantaged to share the beauty of this magical lake with its neighboring nations Tanzania and Uganda. The lake covers a surface area of 68,800 square kilometers. Lake Victoria boasts of unrivaled natural beauty with ranges from the sea view, fishing and water sports. Lake Victoria is also a bird's paradise, especially if you visited Rusinga, Homa Bay County. At least 360 species of local and migratory birds have been spotted in Rusinga, most of which are not found anywhere else in Kenya. The beaches of Lake Victoria in Homa Bay are a beauty that are continually attracting tourists who are increasingly preferring the lakeside to the white beaches of the Indian Ocean. And if you can be just a little patient with nature, then you would enjoy the setting of the African sun.
From the room, from this end to the other end, when you walk in, it's a pin interest photo worthy, and you want to experience this.
And it's a very interesting place to visit as well, but people will normally come to Rusinga and take a boat to Takawiri as well. Apart from that, we also have the Birds Island. It's also, there are two islands, nearby islands. That's where all the birds spend the night. And it's a very good place for fishing as well. And mostly we will normally take the guests there for sundowners, because you'll be able to see the sun setting right into the horizon, the water, and we will also have the birds coming in before you leave back for the lodge.
Irene Choma Odim, magical scenes in the county of Homa Bay.
Thank you very much for staying with BizCheck here on KBC Channel 1. My name is Betty Kiptum, and Lensa Odingo is my colleague on the sign language interpretation. Now, over the next half an hour, the last part of the program, we shall be having a conversation on matters financing MSMEs, micro, small and medium enterprises. And to have this conversation is Stanley Gashoki, who is the head in charge of distribution and premium banking at I&M Bank. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Betty.
Karibu sana. Micro, small, medium enterprises, they are the support of Kenya's economy. You know, they are there creating over 80% of new jobs annually.
Yes.
And over time, they have had challenges accessing funding. How is the banking sector supporting this?
That's a very good question. When you speak about SME, I think probably I should have started with the history of INM.
Sure.
And we celebrated 50 years last year of existence. And through those 50 years, we've learned a lot. And we've actually decided to be very deliberate in anchoring our growth on the SME space. SMEs currently are more than 10 million in the country. And I think they command 98% of the overall businesses which are run in the country. But if you'll see their contribution to the GDP is less than 3%. So the question is, how can we be able to actually come in and help SMEs scale up? And much has been spoken about the South Asian economies. They're all in the same stage as Kenya at one point. And how they were able to actually revolutionize this by the element of now purposing and getting more value and more focused funding in terms of helping them actually move to the next stage. And as INM, we are very deliberate in terms of our products, in terms of our offerings, continue to be very, very innovative. Even as we discuss SMEs, we don't look at this as a typical old business. It's a business that you have to nurture. And if we nurture them collectively and give them the right advice, give them the right kind of solutions, we believe that the growth of the economy will be anchored on the SME space.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that you're speaking about nurturing, because we know that a majority of SMEs, they close shop within the first 3 to 5 years of establishment. So to get an SME to a point of profitability and even exiting that bracket of SMEs, so that they can scale. Please tell us more about what you're doing exactly.
For SME, I think you call it spot on. One of the challenges that SMEs face is the financial literacy. And as INM, even as we embark on this space, what we've done very deliberately is to ensure that we are syncing our financial literacy and advice to these SMEs from the onset. Because we've seen, typically if you speak to the SME towards the end of their career path, probably that 5 year, you're not helping that person. The only way that you're helping that person is to ensure that continually from day one, you are walking the journey. You're able to review and see if we offer a micro banker to help the SME, actually from an advisory perspective, investment options, cost options. Regularly they have this conversation. So you're not waiting until the 5th year for them to say, oh, no, I cannot be able to do it. So even as we expand, we are offering the SMEs financial advice from the onset, things to do with their cost management, things to do with their sourcing alignment, things to do with how do they even manage their overheads, all these things. Because in business, if you're not able to really manage your costs, then the end is more than guaranteed. Any business is anchored on success, but more or less keenly being reviewed on the cost arrangement. Because SMEs, you find that some of them, you start the business and they're already running at 50% cost to income. That is not a very good model to have. You need to ensure that your overheads are as low as 25%, so at least the balance of the 75, you're actually able to deploy profitability and scaling up.
I think advancing credit to SMEs, that journey has come a long way.
Yes.
There was a time when SMEs were high risk and, banks could not touch them.
Yes.
And so the banking industry has been forced to innovate a lot.
Yes.
Tell us about those innovative ventures, so to say, that the banking industry has had to do to accommodate this class.
When you see the products that we have actually come up with, they actually bespoke products, which have been the thought of the SME from the onset.
Okay.
Why do I say so? Today, you'll find, I'll give an example. If you go to Gikomba, for instance, and you find people who are actually trading in Mutuba business, guys who are doing a Tiba business in that particular area. If you look at your solution to be the typical, the old way of banking, you're not going to bank that customer. Because that customer probably wants a solution whereby they can pick funds in the morning, deploy them through the day, and bank them back in the evening. That's a very unique model. If you don't now get into understanding their business model, then you cannot be able to give the solution. So some of the products that you'll actually be able to roll out, which are very innovative, you have a very robust stock financing proposition. We have a very robust micro, small, and MSME loan facilities. Most of them are actually unsecured. But they are geared towards helping the SME move from scale 1, say from X to Y.
When you say even most of them are unsecured, I'm curious as to how you now balance that risk for the bank.
Yes. One of the pillars that we actually want to be known for is being very strong on ecosystems and partnerships. Because you find that there's always the anchor person who is probably supplying these SMEs with products. So how can we be able to anchor on that ecosystem to ensure that you balance the risk element? Why do I say so? Say, for instance, today you're used to picking your goods from company A, and they give you these goods throughout for free, and then by the evening you pay them. It is not a very difficult element to sit with that anchor and see who are your top SMEs that you support. Then you're able to extend the support to those, because they're not going to shut their businesses, and yet they have done it for the last 4 or 5 years. Yes. Yeah. It's more or less looking at balancing the risk and also the reward. And in SME and typically in retail, you look at it from a portfolio perspective. Portfolio, I mean, I need to see also holistically. If I'm deciding to partner in people who are doing trading, say in Gikomba, how many of those are actually doing well? Because many a times you get discouraged because one person or another person has actually gone down, then it creates like a perception that that business is bad. It's not.
It's not.
And if you adopt that kind of approach, then you will actually lose out on most of the business opportunities on the SME space. Yes.
For a lot of businesses, the small businesses, formalization has not yet been achieved.
Yes.
Because of one thing or the other.
Yes.
So I'm curious as to what you're doing to enable these SMEs to ensure that, you know, their books are right and the stuff that they need to be able to even request a loan eventually. Yeah.
Betty, it's a very dicey conversation because most of the businesses are actually started as side hustles.
Right.
So you find that I have a biashara somewhere, let me see how it goes, and then I decide whether I want to incorporate it or whether I want to now make it a fully fledged company. So what we always encourage is from the day one. That's why it's very critical that even our expansion journey, which we've really been on for the last couple of years, is to say, even as we deploy a branch, can we deploy also the micro bankers, the relationship managers, so that that conversation is held at the very early stage of the discussion, such that when you are starting to bank with us, even as we give the products, we tell you, you know, now in 5 years, your financing requirements will not be this low. But in 5 years, probably you'll be seeking 10 million, 5 million, things like that. So how do you grow in that journey? So you take those baby steps. Maybe you never had an auditor, you get an auditor. You never had an incorporation, you incorporate. You never had like a company, like small baby steps. But we've seen success. The ones that have worked with us that journey, we can actually look back and say that we have actually seen success in that particular area. Yeah.
In this very same area of funding, there are other, what do I say, funding institutions that have come about, so to say. There's the digital finance guys who have come up, and because of their ease of access, a lot of businesses, small businesses are going to them. How would you say that compares to dealing with a bank?
I'll say you cannot really differentiate the two. You cannot separate the two. You can only complement the two propositions. Why do I say so? For instance, with the advent of AI, most of our solutions, probably in the next 2-3 years, Betty, will not be too different from each other. So you'll actually be looking at Bank A, Bank B, Bank C. So you look at what is the user experience I'm getting on the app. So it's very easy for you to switch from Bank A to Bank B or to either to Bank C. What is going to change the conversation is the personal touch that you have with your banker. Because there are those discussions that you want to have with your banker, you cannot have it on the app. Yet, you still require this app for convenience.
Yes.
Because one of the dangers of retail banking is actually your cost to serve. If your cost to serve is up the roof, then again, your business model will not be. So you need digital. You're not in competition with digital. But for you to ensure that your customer is loyal to you, you need that personal touch. That is why even when we expand our network, even as we grow our footprint, we are very clear that we want to have a very robust digital offering to complement even what we're having across the branches. And also, keep in mind the financial literacy that we have in this country. Because if you, I'll just use an example. If you go to Turkana and you want to offer fully digital proposition, what will be the level of understanding for your digital offering? So even as we transition our customers to be more financially literate, you need to carry along with them and explain to them this is how you do things. And even an element of reassurance. You want to see your bank fine, it can be online, but at the end of the day, you also still require the personal touch. So I don't say that we are in competition with digital guys who are offering digital solutions. We are actually saying, as a bank, and actually as I&M, we have invested very heavily on a very robust digital offering to complement what we have, even on the personal side. It's critical that your banker understands you. And I was actually reading another article about even the future of banking, even in very developed countries. You find that there are countries who are actually struggling. They've actually deployed robots. But they're trying to crack, how do you have a human touch to the robots? It's a similar thing. You can be very digitally powered, but at still the same time, you also need to have that personal touch. Yes.
Technology will always keep evolving, but
yes,
as you say, the human touch cannot be replaced.
You can't replace, yeah.
Right. So if someone is watching and,
yes,
and they are, running or thinking of running an SME, what
yes,
would be your message to them?
I think I&M is the bank to be, to go to. Let me start from there. We are the fastest growing bank in terms of the customer acquisition in the country. And it's by no means that we have got there. It has got there because of being very, very deliberate in terms of our propositions. We are the only bank which doesn't charge for bank to M-Pesa. We initially started with that proposition for the individual banking customers. We've now rolled it up to the SMEs, or what we refer to as the solo biz. So, and again, I spoke about the element of cost management. So you'd imagine how many payments that you need to make through the day. We are the only bank which is offering that for free, or what we refer to as I&M Nisare. So any SME who is looking for a partner to grow with, I think I&M is the right bank to be in, and we are actually anchoring their growth. And as I said, we celebrated 50 years. We are looking to celebrate another 50 years. We want the SMEs to speak on our behalf, that we've been that partner who has walked with them the journey and who's actually been able to deliver what they initially envisaged to achieve.
Right.
Yes.
In less than a minute, tell us, as your closing remarks,
yes,
the future of banking, the relationship between the banking industry and the SME sector.
We're still going to be very deliberate in terms of focusing on SMEs. We always say that solutions for today will not be the solutions for tomorrow. But even as I wind up, I'll also want to mention and highlight that even our expansion that we've done, we've really taken ESG into consideration. We've gone into modular kind of branch expansion. And why we venture into these setups is more or less, first of all, to take care of the environment. Most of our container branches, which again, it's another new thing for the economy, are actually powered by solar. So we ensure that our carbon footprint is actually reduced even as we do the expansion to cater for these SMEs, and most importantly, even when you're trying to grow our presence across the country. Yes.
Right. ESG is a topic that we can discuss for the next 1 hour,
yes,
But thank you very much, Stanley. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Betty, and thanks for having us in your show today.
Sana.
Thank you.
That is Stanley Gashoki. He is the head of distribution and premium banking at I&M Bank, just talking about how the banking industry is supporting SMEs, and he says that it is a very important sector to support and to nurture those businesses so that they can grow and continue supporting the economy. That is where we put a cap on BizCheck this morning. Thank you very much for staying with us, for watching, and for interacting with us at KBC Channel 1 on Twitter. My personal Twitter handle is at Betty Kiptum. Let us connect and interact. From everybody who made this broadcast possible, we thank you and wish you a lovely afternoon. Continue enjoying the rest of your viewing. Goodbye.
If you visit a large mall in Japan, one thing you're almost certain to see is a game arcade. Despite the spread of online games played at home, constant innovation and unique attractions keep people coming to these arcades. The most popular games are those that require both physical and mental skills to win. An example is this game, using a traditional wadaiko drum. You score points by beating the drum exactly in time to the ever-changing display. Beating the drum is a great feeling. The popularity of such active games inspired the creation of this new centre. Its attractions combine games and sports. In this game, players run from side to side, tilting the seesaw to move the ball on screen into the basket. This is their most popular game. Players race to beat different animals projected on the wall behind them. It's the first game of the kind in the world. I beat him! One familiar game remains so popular it accounts for 60% of Japanese arcade sales. It's the crane game. Yes, the classic game using a crane with a claw to pick up prizes. It's really simple to operate with just 2 buttons to move the crane to your target. The secret of its popularity is the prizes, unique items you can only get by playing this game. Children and parents alike love to play it. The unique attraction of the crane game is the tension. Whether you just catch the prize or just miss it, it's always a thrill. These are magical machines that make everyone smile. How popular are crane games? This dedicated arcade has an incredible 350 of them. Prizes come in all shapes and sizes. For such a simple concept, winning takes quite a lot of skill. The arcade offers a training program with tests and certificates to help players improve their technique. Training is done on the actual machines. The instructor is Igarashi Naoya, a professional gamer. Here, he's demonstrating how to pick up a box, one of the more difficult objects to grab firmly. First, move one of the open arms right next to the prize. Then when the arms close, it will shift the prize to one side. Stuffed animals easily fall out of the claws. The trick is to press the center of the crane onto the animal to make 3 points of contact. For a pile of small animals, it's easiest to just break up the pile. Other techniques include hooking onto straps or pushing objects over the edge. Players need many techniques to handle all the possibilities. Much of the appeal of crane games lies in the multiple strategies required to win. It's such fun! I think it made my game a bit better. Now for the test. The hardest technique is to hook the claws under the sides of a box top. The youngest challenger today is a girl who's come with her dad. Wow! I've never seen someone so young managing it. Well done! Game arcades remain popular with all ages. They act as community spaces for people to enjoy playing together. Jidaigeki are movie and TV period dramas set in pre-modern Japan. Great care is taken to make them look historically accurate, from costumes to hairstyles. They usually feature spectacular sword fights. Dramatic scenes like these